of talking to Helen Eriksen. She is a business psychologist, a keynote speaker, and an author, and also an inspired storyteller. In her varied works, she tackles issues like nature, connectivity, and change. Not only does she talk about these things, she also gives viewers, readers, and listeners the tools to engage with them in a meaningful way. Her insights have also led her to be asked by many corporations to consult and speak with their teams. This work has brought her all over Europe, where she has always left a mark in her own very charming way. Today, we will draw on her wisdom as an inspirator, motivator, and engager of communities and knowledge sharing, and hope to share a bit of her captivating experience.
Maybe it's in times of crisis and challenging waters that we actually get this essential sense of why we are here, what our calling is, because we get also a sense of that we are mortal. And that brings us closer to essence, who we essentially are, not only as ourselves, but also who we essentially are as a global tribe. And the crisis we are in right now with Corona, I think it's been very difficult not to see how just so very connected everything is. It's really tragic in many ways, but if one believes that Mother Earth is a living system and a living organism, then one could interpret what is happening as there is something going on that is bringing human beings closer together. A lot of solidarity is shown in the various countries. I almost get touched by saying this because I think that's what our true nature is. And I think that the growth paradigm, which has brought a lot of excellent things along with it, has also been moving us in a direction where we've moved away from nature. We've also, like Mother Earth nature, and my sense is we've also moved away from our own true nature, not because we're bad people, but because we want to do good. So all of us have actually tried, at least most of us have tried to do a lot of good stuff. But I think in these times of the Corona, we have this moving, touching moment in history to sense, reflect, feel deeper. And I think what we are sensing and feeling is that there's more to life than this. There's more to life than working just for earning money, to have big houses or cars or status, in other words. Maybe a deeper sense of meaning would be, how can I contribute? And my sense is that's what's going on to a very, very uplifting high degree. How can I contribute to my local society, to a broader kind of society, maybe even to a global society? Not by being a rock star, but by being me, by being little me who can do a lot of interesting things, which can be of great help to many, just by being me. It doesn't have to be rocket science. I don't have to be a star, but by being me, essentially me, authentic me, with integrity, we can actually, each of us, move a lot. And I think that is what we are seeing going on right now, that we all sense a higher degree of calling and we move closer together. And not only my hope, but I'm very, very convinced that that sense will stay with us, because this very deeply profound sense of added meaning is not one that one forgets. It's one that reminds us who we really are and what we're really here for. Yeah. And why am I saying this in this way? I'm saying this in this way because in many ways, I'm born in a Western world, but I could as well have been born in a tribe. And I'm saying this because I visited tribes. I've lived with tribes. And when I lived with tribes, what I found was that their way of having no filters with nature, having no filters with what quantum physicists would call the quantum field. That's how I was born. I actually do have no filters. I can sense what other people are sensing, feeling. I can talk to trees. So therefore, I've been living two lives. One as business psychologist, and the other one not talking so much about my sensitivity. And now my worlds are coming together. And this is a very life-confirming time. What one could say was, well, haven't you then been a coward till now? Yeah, maybe. I would say I've used my sensitivity all along. But what's very life-confirming, I think, is that however one might interpret how I've been living and however I might interpret how I've been living, is that in the world, these ways of living are now coming together. It's really time of confluence, that the streams of the two brain halves are coming together. The analytical, the logical mind is coming together with the holistic, the integrative mind. And so we are so much building bridges in these hours, in these minutes, in these seconds, in these times. So my path has been that I have traveled a lot to meet like-minded people, to find out what can we do for the world. I had hoped that by 19, I was sure that in 10 years, the whole earth will be organically grown. Everything will be organic, and we'll really, really take good care of the planet, and we'll live in eco-villages, and we will. It didn't happen just like that. So I met a very good friend like 5 or 10 years ago, and he's a former director of sustainability in the state of California. And what he said was, Helen, we have to change our hopes. And I agree. And it's not change our hopes in the sense of in a pessimistic way, but maybe more like many traditions teach us patience. Patience is a good thing. And to know that even in our small circles, we can move a lot by being who we are. And that's also what I've been doing in the homes I've had, the home I have. And that's also why I am so fascinated and deeply grateful that there is such a thing as Home of Humanity, because that's so much what the world needs, that we open our hearts to others, that we open our homes to others. And home can be very many things, because one can go into a wood, into a forest, and create a field of trust, and that can then be a home of humanity for a day or for a while. Shelters, it doesn't have to be with roofs over us. It can be like we are in a family of trees surrounding us. But just that we have a clear focus, and that we have a clear intention of what we are here for and doing what we feel called for. I think that is so very important, because so many people are out there waiting for all of us to hear our calling and live our calling. And in that sense, we're so much depending on each other, which has been my life philosophy all along, that it's so important that we intuitively actually listen to our calling, because it is and it was never about us. It was about what we are here to contribute with. And therefore, it's so important that we're listening to our calling about what our home in our heart is for humanity, and open that for humanity to actually share the hope, share and make come alive what human beings can do when they gather. When human beings gather, maybe the logical mind wouldn't agree with what I'm just going to say, but actually then magic can happen. And magic has been, along with storytelling, with us sitting around a fire for millions of years. There's nothing new in that. That's where new visions emerged. That's where we felt the tribal history going back and also going forward. That's where the chain of life, the DNA of life just moved forward. And that's why it's so important for us to gather, may it be online, may it be in real life, and find our tribe and invite people into our tribe. Because so much wants to emerge, and a paradigm really is shifting now, and we're standing on so many people's shoulders. As we know, with paradigm shifts, there has to be a majority before it shifts. And I think that's what Home of Humanity is really, really also contributing to. It's this so very important paradigm shift, which many of us have been working for pretty wholeheartedly and diligently lifelong. And maybe we'll see it before we die. And if we don't, that's perfectly okay. Because the universe has its own time. But just imagine all the life-confirming meetings between human beings. I mean, human beings are truly magic. And meetings, the synchronicity meetings, as always, also the psychologist Carl Jung brought to us. I mean, that's what Home of Humanity is. It's all these synchronicity meetings being so important, and which will influence us lifelong. Yeah. I guess that was my statement.
All right, thank you very much. I love how you brought all the various concepts together and in a string of ideas and your own thoughts. I like that very much. One thing that I want to ask you in how do you say that? Not in conclusion, in context of your opening statement. You speak a lot of hope and this life-changing shift that we are experiencing currently. And I wanted to ask you, what was something that you experienced where you personally learned, or maybe a team you've been working with learned collectively, and then also changed a behavior? Because understanding there needs to be change is one thing, but making it happen and learning with each other to make that happen is another thing.
I think it's hard to say when one has been living more than 20 years, because there are quite some, but I would say one of them was when I went to a school, a sport high school, you could say, when I was 18. And that's where I was taught how to meditate. That's where we went on a 10-day fasting seminar to the west coast of Denmark. And while fasting, our teachers, I mean, imagine, this is back in 81, imagine that. We went into the woods, and it was spring, it was May, and we stood with our backs to the trees, and it was like a field trip, you know, in our studies, and we were told to see whether we could sense the trees really pulling up the water. We went to the sea to sense the magnetic waves of the sea. And because we'd been fasting for 10 days, we were ever so completely sensitive that we could sense the whole thing. And I think, and also after 4 days of fasting, my asthmatic bronchitis went away. So that was such an eye-opening journey for me, together with the rest of my fellow students, towards nature, towards how inner and outer nature connects in ways that are deep. And that's where I had this sense of, this I have to share with the world, which is why since then I've been giving fasting seminars every summer, because also to leaders, big gatherings of leaders, because I think to sense the community of cells, which we are, is key to how you go out in the world and support others in leading their lives, helping them, facilitating their lives, inspiring them. My sense is if you have a closeness to this community of cells, that's almost essential for you to go out in the world if you want to share wisdom with others. That was one. The other was a big gathering in Mexico, which was actually a conference on business and consciousness, where we came from all over the world. And there were all these interesting speakers, which by then were talking about, like, not that Ken Wilber was there, but I mean, this integral movement, all these people were there talking about, and we were sharing with each other, how can we go back and actually create communities, support communities, support community building, like all these small ways of doing it that in the end will become a movement. Doing that with so many people from all over the planet was such a life-confirming experience, and that was back in '96. And that was really a synchronicity meeting, because not much of that was going on in my home country and in the Nordic countries back then. So that was very important. I think it was almost, I don't know when the internet went on, but we didn't have much help. We couldn't Google very much, at least back then. So meeting all these people was so, I mean, it was before Amazon, it was before all this, where you can, hey, let me read all these interesting books. So that was really like a jumping board. Yeah.
Thank you very much. How then do you think we can tap into this global connectivity that we have today, and especially in this crisis? How can we transform this from just connectivity to actual, as you said, becoming a global tribe and acting as one?
That's such a wonderful question. It's a wonderful question because it's wonder-filled if we can do that, which we can do. And it's actually a question that I've been asking myself all along. It's probably one of my key questions to myself regarding my own calling and my own sense of what is responsible. How can I very responsibly contribute with what I feel called for, which is also why, to answer your question, I think we can do that intuitively. My sense is that when we get an intuitive impulse, it's actually another way of saying we are called. And an intuitive impulse is not a feeling, it's not a thought. It's actually a deeply rooted sense going into our DNA and calling forth, unfolding, and that's also what my books are about, exactly this, calling forth what parts of my implicate consciousness wants to unfold right now for me to actually to contribute in the world. This is how we are called. So I think to further answer a question, reduce noise, because we can't hear an intuitive calling when we've got rock playing in one room, blues in a third room, jazz right here, and opera is playing somewhere else. We need to reduce the way we eat, the way we think about life and ourselves, the way we feel, so that we actually, in that sense, become still more neutral in the sense of as little judgmental as it gets. I mean, not that we should become saints with and such, and not that we shouldn't drink whiskey, and not that we shouldn't, etc. But we should have a lot of fun, and we should dance, and we should laugh, and all that. It's just that I think an important part of being responsible, using our ability to respond, is that we, and that is for me to be really spot on, highly sensitive, intuitive, is to reduce noise. Eating, in what we drink, where we live, reduce Wi-Fi, EMF meters, all that. Who are we surrounded with? All the epigenetic factors, actually. How do I move my body? Or how do I not move my body? How many people do I hate? How many people can I forgive? All that, what is about being human, but reducing noise, because if we think that what's going on is something that presidents decide and politicians and such people, I think we are missing out on something very important, namely that every thought counts, every feeling counts. Not that that should lead to shame and bad conscience and oh my God, and I thought negatively about Mrs. Jones last night, and oh my God, no, not at all like that. Just actually like mindfulness is, oh, I noticed that I was thinking, feeling that, accepting it without judging it, back to my breath. Yeah, breathing. But reducing noise, becoming very conscious in a playful way. I believe very much in taking oneself seriously, in the sense of that I have a responsibility in how I actually live my life, knowing that I do what I'm called to do, and at the same time actually having fun, sharing joy, because life is short. And we also know that actually those, which I think is very life confirming, that the ends of our chromosomes, called telomeres, that they actually are they get longer and longer the more we laugh, the more humor we use, not irony, but humor. And the longer they are, the longer we live. So somehow I think that's life telling us, laugh a lot, play a lot, dance with life.
I love that, especially that by laughing, our lives will be longer. I can really love this.
Probably also by drinking good champagne.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'm thinking about which questions to ask you, because so many are popping up right now, but I kind of want to stay in the northern realm, although I have many questions that I would personally like to know from you. Okay, so about the co-creation that we have talked about briefly, I think you are very in tune to that we do not create in isolation, and that there's always an exchange going on. And I wanted to know, what do you think are the prerequisites, especially with Home for Humanity in mind? How can we enable effective co-creation? How can we enable other people to create with us, create on their own, or create with other people? What are the tools that we need for that?
Such a good question. Imagine if a politician asked that question to him or herself and to the people. Imagine what would happen. Now you're asking it, which is so lovely. I think, for one, it all starts with a clear voice. It starts with center. It starts with a human being hearing the calling from a clear place, and then exercising in how can I, what is my path, life path of expressing my voice clearly, so that my tribe can find me and I can find my tribe. Because that's how it works. That's also how it works in our body, which I work with a lot, both physically and nutritionally and biologically and leadership-wise and in organizations. Clear voice. And then we need to work on consciousness. We need to work on consciousness co-creatively, in the sense of that if we look into the body, we can ask ourselves, are there power games in the body? Is there manipulation in the body? Do people backstep in the body, or cells rather? The answer is very clear, no. So, and this is a living system showing us, this is what my next book is about. So I'm completely into this right now. But for me to see, the body is a blueprint almost of the universe, one could say. It's a blueprint of how can we co-creatively actually imitate a living system that has survived, not only survived, but created a lot of fascinating stuff on its way. So the consciousness of what is co-creation actually about, what needs to be there, and what is important that we very lovingly say goodbye to. We need clear voices. One would say tribal leaders, but we need clear voices who can gather, who can call us in, but who know that it's not about them. And that's a crucial part, because so often it's happening and then it becomes kind of messiah leadership, and then it implodes. So we all are those people who call in each in each of our ways of doing it. And so the consciousness about how important it is that we actually work on ourselves as being these cells in the larger organism, knowing that it's not about me. Because then from that point, we have all we need. We've everything. We have the infrastructure. We have two brain halves. We have loving hearts. We have gut feeling. We have bodies and cells who work very diligently with us. So the consciousness of what am I here for? And it's not about me. It's what I'm here to contribute with, co-creatively with others. So I would say, a clear intention about that it's not about me, it was never about me, and it will never be about me, because I'm a cell in a living organism, and do that joyfully, with love, dance.
Thank you very much for that. Especially the part about the leaders, that we need leaders in itself, I think is something strong, but also that we need leaders who are not in it for their own personal gain, and who don't want, not in it for the glory of being a leader. I think that's very important, because then also the leadership role is a different one. It's really there to help everybody, and not to help this leader person become a leader, which I think often as well, we know it coming from a business university. There's a lot of leadership programs and a lot of talk about effective leadership, and a lot of young students very eagerly trying to succeed in this. And I think you summed it up quite clearly.
Well, and I think that the good news is that somehow it takes one to know one. I mean, I've studied economics and business and leadership in a very traditional way. And that is also why, and I think that's important, because as the Danish philosopher Kierkegaard said, we have to meet people where they are at. And so we are all at different spots, and somehow nothing is better than something else. But what is important is to build the bridges, without actually judging anybody, because everyone is actually struggling out there, doing their very best. And what I think is so life confirming is how the physical body reacts if one actually listens without judging, when one is present and curious. One can see amygdala just down regulating its activity, and it's our what could we say? It reacts to when patterns change, or when something is going on that's different. And when we are present and non-judgmental, amygdala just less adrenaline, less testosterone, less cortisol. and I think that's life in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah. It really is. Yeah, respecting each other, and also seeing that there's a lot of people with different opinions that just are perfectly needed for us to work together.
Yeah, and I think in particular also in the leadership role, that one knows that one is there to facilitate, that one is there to see actually facilitate calling, if you will, to what some would maybe say facilitate competences, but to actually facilitate self-organization, which, having said that, one can hear that it's again not about me. I'm here for the sake of the larger organism, for it to grow, which is also the name of one of my books, Giving While Growing. I'm very inspired by nature and by the fruit tree. Spend a lot of time in nature among fruit trees and seeing their cycles, and finding out that a fruit tree, even if it's been given so many fruits one year, it'll actually grow from it, and it'll give fruits next year too. And the leaves will, by small warmth, be pulled into the earth, and then it'll be humus and soil, and then it'll be growth power for the next season. And this cyclic way, some would say integral way of looking at it, but that it's all, everything is a cycle. I think it's so important, because that's also what I learned from the tribes I've been working with, and am inspired by their wisdom about that they could never dream of polluting their own nest. they would always think about, some say 7 generations, but at least the generations ahead of us, knowing that nature is alive, knowing that, as I think it's a proverb that's very often quoted, that when we don't have more water and we can't breathe more air, we'll know that we can't eat money, which is so true. We can't. But that said, again, I think it's so important that we build a bridge now between the growth paradigm and what I call the interconnectedness paradigm, because that's now part of our challenge. It's to build this bridge, for ourselves and for the next generations to come, which is very exciting. And this is also why I'm so amazed and so happy about what's going on, for example, in Home of Humanity. I mean, it brings so much hope.
That's true, and it's really a remarkable feeling to be part of it and to see the possibilities that just are there.
Yeah, a lot of bridge building is going on there too, between brain halves and visions and ways of looking at life, and looking at economics, at all the disciplines.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's why we are personally so attracted to it, because it's just natural. It's how it works.
And very meaningful too.
Yeah. All right, I want to give Stephanie a chance to ask a question.
Well, since we're talking about Home for Humanity, I was wondering if you would like to share with us a specific memory that you had at Home for Humanity that you really like looking back, and also in what way your visits there influenced or affected your work in the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. Could you talk about those memories and those inspirations that you got from there?
Yeah, would love to. One of the gatherings was a celebration of love, and wise people who are leaders of communities in various places on the planet were gathered. And it was in nature, and there were scientists, there were quantum physicists, there were doctors, there were psychologists, there were gynecologists, there were musicians. I mean, bring it on. And all the worlds came together. All the knowledge, all the wisdom came together. And that was such a moment of life confirming meaningfulness and beauty. And that is, I think, what Home for Humanity stands for me. It is this open field, open platform, embracing all paths of life, all also scientific disciplines, wisdom disciplines, all is welcome. And that it always includes nature, and it always includes beauty. It is as if right there, beauty can move freely. Wisdom can move freely. Disciplines can inspire each other. And that is what's happened to me every time I'm there. And I was thinking this morning, how many times have I visited? I am not sure. Maybe 10 or 15, maybe more. And the same thing happens to me every time. I'm so inspired when I leave, and I'm so filled up, and I'm so much a better version of myself, actually, because the way Home for Humanity mirrors groups, mirrors individuals, comes from this very integrated, wholehearted place. And it's very rare, actually. I think I've visited a lot of places. And I have never experienced this clear voice I was talking about earlier. As clear as there. Because it's lived to its fullness. And that requires that the people there are living it, because you can't fake that. And that is so inspiring to so many people. And that's exactly what I meant with this clear voice, because with that clear voice, that's why people gather there. That's what Home for Humanity does to the world. And imagine how many people gather there who then are mirrored like that, with that wholeness, becoming better versions of themselves, sensing who they really are and who they also are, and then go out in the world spreading that. And in that way, it's like a catalyst to a degree that, hooray, thank you. Yeah. It's actually really impressive when I think about it, what an enormous catalyst, an enormous catalyzing force that, you can call it institution or place or life force, but what it actually represents. Because it may be in a country, but it actually spreads to the whole world. Pretty impressive. Yeah.
Absolutely, it is pretty impressive, and it's so lovely that us little students, let's say it this way, even get the chance to talk to you and so many other people, and that we are able to connect with you and listen to you. That's really amazing. And this catalytic force, we really are also able to feel, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you are catalysts yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Leandra, you wanted to ask one more question?
Yes. Sadly, we are already coming almost to the end of our interview session, although we could, I think, talk for much, much longer. And I wanted to bring it to this connecting question that I informed you about, that I ask all interview partners, which is also, you could say, about a catalyst in a lot of people's lives. Because it is about your own mother. So I wanted to ask you what your mother taught you.
She is the wise woman of our tribe. And my children call her that. They call her the shaman of the family, actually. And it's not that my children are shamans. I mean, one is a physician and the other is an economist. So, but what she taught me was wisdom of life, and I'm her ever so grateful. I tell her every time I meet with her, I talk to her every day. She taught me that whatever happens, it's a kind of life duty that not I have, that we as human beings have, that you have to be the soul with the biggest heart. So you have to be the one embracing and going into meta, but being the one embracing and forgive and share love. And that will change mostly whatever challenging situation, conflict you might be in. That's one thing she taught me. Then she taught me that never gossip, never backstep. If you can't say something to somebody lovingly to their face, go for a walk. Work on yourself. Again, it's a life duty. It's a responsibility you have. Then she told me, everything you send out will come back. So you have to see to that what you speak, what you think, what you feel, and what you live, that paves your path in a way that you would always want to come back to it. And if you don't want to come back to it, you haven't paved it lightfully or lovingly or consciously, so that you can grow from it in a sufficient way. So in that sense, the sense of being genuine and clear and conscious and true, she also told me and taught me. And then she taught me presence, what loving presence can do to a human being, because she is so lovingly present always. And of course, she said, treat other people as you would like to be treated yourself. But I just visited her, and I told her that something crazy was going on, and I said, right here, it comes to mind what you always told me. Don't talk badly about other people, because it was really crazy what happened. That one was so close to, but no, don't go there. It's not a good idea. Spiral somewhere else. So I feel very, very privileged. I wish everyone had mothers like that. And I think that is what we can be to each other, because we can't all have mothers like that, but we can have friends like that. We can have influences in our co-creative worlds like that. We can mirror each other like that and heal traumas or that we have lacked presence like that, or love or wisdom like that. That is what we can give each other with each loving with each other's loving presence. And in that sense, we are all mothers to each other, because we're loving forces who can make each other grow while we give, which is my life philosophy. This is the outside of my summer cottage, where I've been giving my seminars and having had my gatherings. So I'll give you a little tour right now. So this is, for example, where we might sit and meditate. Can you see it? Yeah.
Yes.
It's a little terrace, and then we're moving out into the area. Okay, let's see. So this is a little fireplace we sometimes sit around. Let's see. How can I get you to see that here? Yeah.
Oh, beautiful.
So we sometimes gather around that when it's not too windy. And I don't know whether you can see it when I lift it up. Can you see the seaside?
Yes, we can. Thank you. And we can even hear the fire. That's lovely.
Can you see it? Oh yeah, you can hear it. I can hear it too. So this is where we will have our. We'll go into nature. We'll go here around here meditating. We'll be lying on the ground. We'll be doing earthing. And then there is a big area nearby where one can hike. So we hike in nature. It's a national park, actually. Okay, yeah. So this is where we are.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So here we are having our gatherings. And what we'll sometimes do is we will rent houses nearby so that we can have more people. Yeah. So it's wind, it's water, it's fire,